Inventory is still slowly declining. Let's talk about that and more in this week's segment of Market Watch. Hi everyone, Joshua Barks here, associate broker with Keller Williams Realty Boise and team lead of the Barks & Co. Real Estate team. Here's this week's update of Market Watch, where we talk about the Boise area housing market on a week-over-week basis. And this week we're seeing inventory continue to come down, not at a drastic pace. It's not falling out of the sky, but it's leading me to believe that we saw our peak of inventory when we were right around 1,700 active for sale listings in Ada County. Now that's resale, doesn't count new construction. So just homes where people have bought them, lived in them, and owned them for a while, and then are selling them again. So 1,700 was where we peaked out so far this year. My best guess is going to be that that's what we're going to see. That was our highest number for the year, and we're going to continue going downward really into the winter months. What we typically see around this time of year is people get distracted with back to school and things like that. And then when we have Labor Day weekend, like this weekend, that kind of is the last hurrah for summer. It's saying goodbye to summer, and then people can really settle down into their new routine. And then that's when we have our fall market start to pick up, because people are like, okay, now I need to get into a place so that I can celebrate the holidays in my new home. So that's what we're likely going to see. Inventory will come up a little bit, but probably we're going to continue to see it come down before we start seeing it come up by any significant means. Right now we have 1,634, so down a good deal from the 1,700 that we had just a couple of weeks ago. Last week we had 1,691 available overall, and then the number of new listings coming to market is also steadily declining. Now, several weeks ago, we talked about it being the first time we had less than 200 new listings coming to market on a week-over-week basis, and we're still continuing that trend. We have 158 new listings came to market in this last week, down from the week prior with 185 new listings. Number of pending sales on the flip side, so inventory coming down, pending demand staying pretty flat. Still, we have 530 pending overall right now, which is down by 1 from last week's 531. Now, on a week-over-week basis, we actually had more buyers go under contract this week than we had last week, with 164 buyers purchasing homes this week. Last week, we had 152. So again, very close to about the same, but technically more this week. And when we're talking about home sales, the actual closings that take place in the last 7 days, those were consistent pretty much week over week as well, with 153 closing in the last 7 days compared to the 157 that we had last week. Now we've been hovering at that 125 to 150-ish number for several weeks now, so it's no surprise that we saw that again. And as you might recall from other videos, at the end of the month / beginning of the month, that's typically when we see the most closings. So it'll be really interesting to see what that number looks like next week, being the first official week of September and after Labor Day weekend. I have a feeling that today, because the cutoff for this was yesterday, I have a feeling that today had a lot more closings than what we saw, to account for more sold in the next 7 days than what we saw this last week, because Fridays are a pretty popular day for closings, and this weekend being a long weekend, I would estimate that a lot of buyers would have chosen to try to get keys this Friday so they could have a 3-day weekend for moving in. So that's just kind of my guess for a prediction in the future. When we're looking at the fall market though, like I said, demand staying pretty much flat, inventory is coming down a little bit. We'll have probably an uptick in demand as we get into the fall, like I said, when people are starting to really focus on getting that new home for the holidays. And when we're talking about interest rates though, the interest rates did go up again this week. 5.66% is the national average for the 30-year fixed, according to Freddie Mac, which is more than twice as much as what we had this time last year. Though That's really neither here nor there because the Fed chairman had his speech earlier this week. I don't know how many of you saw it or read about it, but essentially he said that the Fed is going to continue to raise the rate. They have to be more aggressive than they have been because inflation is at 8% or something like that. And then they're trying to get it down to their goal number of 2%. So they still have quite a ways to go. And the rate hikes that they've been doing haven't been making enough of a difference. So we're likely going to see high rates and high inflation for a little while. Things are going to get worse before they get better for the economy overall, the national economy there. And as we've seen, when the Fed rate goes up, mortgage rates tend to follow. So it's very possible we're going to see mortgage rates continue to rise because they've risen so far the last couple weeks because of that volatility and the anticipation of the rising Fed rate coming down the pike. So I wouldn't be too surprised if we did see 6% by the end of the year. I'm hoping we don't. I'm hoping we kind of stay in that 5.5% number or even go back down to 5. That'd be great, but I anticipate we're either going to stay about the same where we are or go up based on these reports. And so if you're thinking about making a move, you're a buyer or a seller or both, that you meet with a real estate professional like myself that can actually explain what's going on in the market. And then you can give us the information about what your wants and goals are. And then we can say, here's the information, here's how we could make that happen, here's what your options are. Because nobody has a crystal ball. Nobody knows exactly what's going to happen with the market. If we did, we'd all be rich, right? Or that person would be rich and they wouldn't be telling anybody else about it. But it's a very individual choice. It's not always going to be the right time to move for everybody. So it depends on your specific situation. So as a buyer, it could be the perfect time for you to move, or it could be a terrible time for you to move, just depending on your situation. Same as a seller. It could be a great time for you to sell, could be an awful time for you to sell, depending on your situation. And you don't know that until you actually meet with somebody that has this data to really go over with you, because there's so much misinformation online these days that it can be really hard to sort out the wheat from the chaff and really figure out what is good information for you to make that decision. That's all I want to be here for, is a resource for you. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. If you want to have that mini consultation, I'm always happy to help as well. Even if you're not thinking about moving in for, maybe not until next year, you want to plan, you're thinking about next spring, next summer. Now's still a great time to sit down with a real estate professional and just figure it out. But that's what I have for you this week. Next week, we're going to go into our deep dive into the market dynamics for August, because that report should be out probably on Tuesday. So that'll be good. We'll have that covered. And I hope everyone has a great Labor Day weekend.